What's up guys, it's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you another State of Decay 3 video. Let's get into it. So guys, in this video, we're going to be taking reference from an article that's coming to us from Devin Friend of MSN. And this is about some things, guys, I thought it was important to talk about. You know, things that State of Decay 3 could certainly improve on, and that being Undead Labs and Microsoft Game Studios, some things that they could certainly improve on in State of Decay 3, especially seeing as how this game is taking so much time to make and release to the world. You know, maybe some things that they could certainly leave in the past and things that they could improve on moving forward. So let's get into it. So guys, State of Decay 3 would do well with the excitement provided by State of Decay 2's curveballs, but one effect shouldn't be reused. One of the goals of State of Decay 3 should be to push its limits further than the last game could achieve. Although curveballs were a late addition to the game, they are a mechanic that has plenty of potential for the future. Despite being a good addition, the curveballs in State of Decay 2 still had some kinks to work out. This is especially true when it comes to the most obstructive feature they can bring. Among the potential features for State of Decay 3, curveballs are a strong contender. Introduced in State of Decay 2 Update 34, curveballs are events that will affect the game in some way while they're active. Some are helpful, such as weakening zombies, while others are harmful, like lowering the community's stamina. There is a lot of variation between curveballs, with some affecting certain areas while others are map-wide. There are even some that will only end once the player solves a certain objective on the map. Curveballs can be tricky, but they keep State of Decay 2 players on their toes and are usually quite fun, though there is one exception. You know, I agree, guys. I think there's a number of ways that overall that State of Decay 3 could improve from State of Decay 2. Not only from the basic things like from a graphical fidelity perspective, making the, enhanced graphics, to a better multiplayer experience, to more, a longer story, more open world, side missions and things of that nature. There's certainly a number of ways where they could improve upon the experience, but State of Decay 3, I feel, needs to really focus in on creating a really compelling multiplayer experience, creating great co-op modes, single player modes, really creating this thing into a full package that feels completed, feels like everything is well polished, there's no bugs, glitches like we've had in State of Decay 2, so on and so forth. But legacy goals kept players busy in State of Decay 2 during playthroughs, but State of Decay 3 can overhaul this source of missions. I mean, maybe they do something a little bit different, but I thought that legacy goals, one of the things that I enjoyed about that was that it kept you busy. Like it says in State of Decay 2, it kept you, coming back to the experience to do different things, but you could, create other, types of missions and things of that nature, something that could certainly work on. Now, vehicles are one of the most important parts of State of Decay 2, being necessary to travel any more than a few blocks away from home base. However, some curveballs directly impact vehicle performance, for those can be some of the most costly. One, Bangernomics makes vehicles slow to accelerate, lose their brakes, and expend fuel at a much higher rate. One possible mutation of the Black Heart dials this up even further, draining fuel so quickly that cars become virtually useless. Both of these fuel draining effects have the same frustrating cost, making State of Decay 2's vehicles nearly impossible to drive. I 100% agree with this, where the whole fuel ordeal, how the fuel just goes down so quickly and things of that nature. Definitely, guys, it can be very frustrating, to say the least. The Black Heart is an extremely difficult curveball in its own right and doesn't need the fuel consumption penalty. Fuel penalties are more obstructive than challenging. Even though most of the curveballs would be great to see return in State of Decay 3, the fuel draining curveballs are a different matter. Rather than giving players an extra challenge to work around, Bangernomics and the Black Heart's fuel penalty are more like roadblocks that grind a player's progression to a halt. They force players to either spend a lot of their fuel reserves to make drives that would otherwise be routine, or stop driving until their effects end. Either way, it's more of a hindrance to the game rather than an actual challenge to overcome, making these curveballs very undesirable. I 100% agree. One of the most frustrating things about State of Decay 2 has been, when you're driving around, always having to look at that fuel gauge and how close you are to empty, things of that nature. It was always definitely took you out of the experience as you're like going through, you're doing different missions and things of that nature, having to find fuel or whatever in order to fuel your vehicle. And I know, guys, it can, seem a little bit more realistic that way. It just takes you out of the experience consistently and out of what they're trying to do in terms of the lore and the story and things of that nature. Curveballs that don't penalize players' fuel consumption wouldn't even be necessary. There are many more interesting effects that State of Decay 3's play can employ to be a threat. For instance, Screamers and Ferals could see temporary upgrades similar to the ones that Bloaters and Juggernauts could receive in State of Decay 2. Other new curveballs could impact the map or community in different ways, like infesting an active outpost. Even the Bangernomics curveball could be recycled without the devastating fuel penalty if need be. There are so many ways to challenge players with curveballs that don't create a wall for their progress. I'm 100% on board with that. Bringing curveballs back in State of Decay 3 is a good idea. However, if the developers want to make sure that State of Decay 3 doesn't struggle at launch, then ironing out some issues will be necessary. By removing curveballs that penalize fuel consumption, there will be fewer possible roadblocks that could make early playthroughs more frustrating. Most of the time, the twists provided by State of Decay 2's curveballs are welcome, but State of Decay 3 doesn't need effects that make the game tedious rather than challenging. Guys, they're spot on with this article. I mean, gosh, this is spot on, no doubt. Look, I'm really excited, to say the least, guys. I mean, kind of putting a bow on this. I'm really excited for what State of Decay 3 could be. I think there's a lot of promise here, a lot of excitement. At the same time, there's a lot of concern around State of Decay 3 because of how long it's taken them to develop this game, how long it's taken to release, and then when they give us a release year, they're moving it. Obviously there was a lot of talk that it was going to come out in 2025, and then it got pushed to 2026. More than likely because of GTA 6, or more than likely because of other games, or maybe they're not fully there yet. But it gives you the thought, the indication that Undead Labs, Microsoft Game Studios, and just State of Decay 3 as a whole is in a development hell cycle, or there's creative differences within the company. There's a number of things that are probably going on because this game should have already released, and it hasn't yet. And so I understand, and I'm sure many of you out there understand that like games in this day and age take a long time to make, and so there's a lot of resource and development that goes into these games, and, millions upon millions of dollars goes into them, and they can take time to get right. And so I'm totally okay with them delaying the game until it's right. I just think that from when this game was initially announced back in 2020, I mean, it's just been such a very slow process to getting this game, to release to the world. And it does concern me, to say the least. But look, State of Decay 3 is an open-world survival game set years after a zombie apocalypse nearly wiped out humankind. An evolving zombie threat is taking over the landscape, and you need to carve out a life for your community of survivalist homesteaders. And I mean, obviously, guys, now that they're going to be bringing like infected wildlife and things of that nature, at least it looked like that from the very initial trailer. Gave me a very Last of Us vibe, that initial, reveal trailer. I'm really excited about that. The choices you make affect in-game events and storylines, so be careful. If one of your community members falls to the zombie horde, you'll lose that character and their abilities forever. Every risk must be weighed against the reward. With online multiplayer for up to 4 players, start a community together from scratch with your friends in a shared persistent world. You'll be able to build, develop, and expand a base that reflects your designs and choices. So look, guys, it looks like I had mentioned, there's a lot of things to be really excited about with State of Decay 3. There's a lot of things, though, that to be concerned about. And it's understandable to be concerned about some of these things. And I'll be sure to keep you guys all up to speed as we get more information in the future. But what do you guys think about like the curveballs, ways that they could improve the experience, obviously the fuel consumption, all of those different things? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about this in the comment section down below. Let's have a real conversation about it. And for more State of Decay 3 content and videos, keep it right here.